Hi, everyone. Oh, you can hear me for sure. Welcome to Show Me the Numbers, from cool visualizations to actionable results at Access Capital. I guess kind of high-level overview of today. I'm not used to a stage. My presentation today, you won't win Iron Viz with it, but what I'm going to show you, and I hope you can walk away with, are some practical implementations of and uses of Tableau, and more from a corporate perspective, and really getting to the information that folks in your organization need to make decisions on and take action on. Okay, so from an agenda perspective, I'll give you a short introduction of myself and Access, and then I'm going to show you just a few examples of visualizations we've built, and really those visualizations and what the drivers were to get through, sort of that guided analysis to get down to the details that folks in an organization need to take action, right? And then each one of the other agenda items, it'll be a lot of show and tell, right? So not a lot of time in PowerPoint. Most of the time I'll be in Tableau just showing you some of the techniques that we've used to get to the information and answer the questions and react to the requirements that we get at Access. Okay, so that's me. I lead the management information group at Access. We're sort of a centralized group, so think of like a BI group, and we handle all of the reporting, information provisioning, and such. This is Keuka Lake. If anyone likes nature, likes wineries, and likes breweries, Finger Lakes, New York is a great place to go. Okay, so Access. Access is a specialty property and casualty insurance carrier. The way I like to describe us from a data perspective is we do not have a lot of volume. So we're not a personal lines carrier. Like if you folks went to the Allstate presentation, lots of policies, right? We are all commercial and very complex policies. So the data is more wide than it is deep, and many different levels of policies and policy contracts and customizations within, so kind of understanding and capturing the data and how to work with it is really where our complexity lies. Okay, so some examples. So Access, we don't write any direct insurance either. We work through a network of brokers who then work with clients, right? So example would be, General Electric has some risks within their organization that they need to cover from an insurance policy. They'll go to a broker, if you've ever heard of like Marsh or Aon or Willis, the Willis building in Chicago, that's an insurance broker. And so this dashboard shows performance of brokers comparing their current to prior to plan amounts, which is great, and it shows a lot of information. And there's a lot of options. You can see all the filters down the side and other parameters across the top, and it's very dynamic and shows where performance is relative to time. But what folks who use this dashboard asked of us is, how do we really get down to the drivers? And what they're talking about is the accounts. So if results are falling short, are there accounts that we lost, or are there accounts that we just didn't book yet, to understand what's driving those variances? Right. So this one is a claim dashboard, and you can see there's a lot of KPIs on here, and a lot of good information, right? Really provides a good snapshot for our senior claim leaders. Things like financial performance, open claim counts, how are claim adjusters handling their workload, cycle times, all of that. But an example to point out here is that big red peak. what's driving that, right? What are the actual claims, and is this something that from a management level perspective, I need to get involved with, and maybe I need to work side by side with the adjuster, or I need to, maybe I need to seek external counsel to get help with handling a specific claim. Account management, so again, our underwriters work with brokers, and what they need is, this dashboard shows kind of a forward look at the expiring policies so they can see what's coming up for renewal, right? So saying, 30, 60, 90, 120 days in advance, what accounts are coming up for renewal? And they like to kind of work off of a log or a list, if you will, because it's good to take a static snapshot of what's coming up for renewal and then kind of work off of that instead of constantly coming into a report and seeing numbers change all over the place. And I'll show you what we did there in a few minutes. This one's just kind of a little bit blurred out, but what this is really representing is we have a workbook with a number of dashboards, right? And the request here was from our North America claim manager. Again, a lot of our dashboards are very dynamic, so it enables leaders to go in and kind of create their own slice of the data. But from his perspective, he wanted everyone for his monthly meetings on a consistent report, a consistent layout to kind of start the meeting off, everything looking the same across different lines of business. And so he was essentially looking for a reporting pack, which it's kind of funny because I was in a session earlier in the week where a group was taking the reporting pack and disseminating it into Tableau, and we've kind of done a little bit of the reverse. So they use that reporting pack and then dive into Tableau for the analysis, right, to understand the drivers. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into some of the solutions that we have. Oh, disclaimer, you've probably seen this a lot this week. Fake data is presented for purposes of TC 18 only. So everything you see here is just all made up, is another way to say it, right? So this is the first example, and I showed this. This was the broker view, the first one that I showed you. And so the goal here, and these slides, you'll see there's a pattern here. So the goal here was to provide access to account information, right? To understand what the variances are and what accounts are driving those variances, right? And then we also had a need to link out to our policy systems. So if there's something that needs to be investigated, the users of the dashboards don't have to kind of go out to a different website or to a different tool or whatever it may be to get to the information they're looking for. So what we're looking at and what we've done a lot with is replacing the kind of high-level summary report and then pick up a phone and call an analyst or somebody in another department to understand what the drivers are, to more of a point and click. I can just right on my desktop figure that out myself, right? And it really shortens down the time because the person on the other end of the phone is also busy, may not answer the phone, may take 3-4 days to get you that information, and here you can get it in seconds, literally. So let me jump right in and show you what we did here. Okay, so this is that same dashboard that I had showed you, the broker analysis, and check my notes, I'll set this up. So I'm just going to change the business unit here to the monkeys. I prefer the Beatles, but the monkeys works too. So you can see here, maybe I want to understand the data group, right? This is my broker, the data group, and what's leading to the huge variance from a current to prior year perspective, right? So simple, a lot of you have probably used these. Simple dashboard action. If I click on the data group, it'll kind of now refresh the rest of the dashboard for that broker only, right? And you can see over here on the right-hand side, This is breaking the information down a little bit further. So it's still the monkeys, but it's also showing me my new versus renewal splits. So I can see kind of what's making up the current year's results. But this view by is a parameter that allows me to look at that information by any one of these different dimensions. So maybe I want to understand if kind of the region or the office location is the driver of this variance, right? So I can see it's Barton Hollow. And when I hover over the bar here, there's a tooltip, right? Launch variance details. And that's a dashboard action. If you're not familiar with those, you can go over here. Did I click that? There, dashboard actions, right? If we look at this launch variance details, you can go into edit, and you can just see this is a menu-driven dashboard action that has some action on my current dashboard, and it's going to send me somewhere else to this variance analysis detail dashboard, right? So let's see this in action. Again, I'm going to hover over, and I'm going to click on Launch Variance Details. Okay. So now I get a list of policies, right? And this is really what folks in our organization are looking for. What are those specific accounts that are driving the variance? And this used to be, pick up the phone, call finance. Finance is then going to go run a query tool and do extracts of data to Excel and try to figure out what's going on. There's nothing scientific going on here. I mean, it's really just looking at a comparison of current to prior amounts and then applying a threshold to that. So if this list is too long for me, maybe I want to say, I can come down here to this filter. I only want to see variances greater than $1.7 million. So now I have a shorter list to look at, right? And it gives a good indication. Again, nothing scientific. There's no model behind this, but it's a point and click, help folks to get to answer the questions that they need to answer, okay? Now, the other thing we did here was, this is an example where folks want to understand maybe more about the policy, right? So this first one here, could be, it may still be in progress. It may not have booked through our systems yet and fed down into our dashboards. So what they can do is, if I click on this policy number, this says launch IRIS policy. IRIS is a policy administration system used largely within the London market. So again, if I come over to dashboard and look at actions, launch IRIS policy, what this is doing is a URL action, and I'll show you a more in-depth one later, but you can see it kind of calls a website here, goes out to that IRIS system and passes in the value of that policy so that when it launches IRIS, that policy will just be refreshed right there within IRIS. I can't do that. I'm not connected, so I can't hook up and show how that works. But I think it kind of plays out. Okay. So the next example. So this is referencing the claim example that I showed you earlier, and to look at a little bit different dashboard. But again, what folks want to understand is, what are the claims that are driving this? Who's that insured? Is it an account that I'm already aware of? Is it something new? Has there been a big pop that now I really need to get involved with this? Uh-oh, that's not cool. Whew. I was going to say it worked this morning. Okay, so again, we're looking at the monkeys. And let's see if I can make this a little bigger for this one. Yep. Okay, so we're looking at the monkeys again, similar functionality, and we have this across most of our dashboards, the ability for folks to dynamically change the rows of information they're looking at, all parameter driven here. So maybe I want to look at this by the claim handler, claim adjuster. It's referenced in a lot of insurance organizations, right? So even though I picked claim adjuster, it says underwriter demo, but and humor me. There's a lot of information here, right? And a lot of numbers. Again, not going to win Iron Viz, but it's really important for our claim folks to understand each one of these metrics and look at the trends within them. So for example, if I'm looking at this paid loss, I can see things are, there's a 3, a 4, a 10, it's kind of steady, and then I see this, this $12 million blip here. Well, I need to know what that is. So what we can do is we can get to the details right within this dashboard in line to understand what claims are driving that $12 million. So if I click here on Underwriter Demo, what that's going to do is that's going to provide focus for the bar chart down below. And right now, this bar chart is displaying trending based on the new claim count. So I'm going to change that over to the paid loss because that's the one that I'm interested in. And you can see all of these numbers align to the numbers up above in the table, right? And I can see my $12.3 million blip here. So I want to understand what are the claims that are driving that? What are the big claims that are in there? If I click on the bar, you see down below this detail table displays, right? And in that detail table, I can now go through, I can sort, I can figure out what are the claims that I really need to focus on. Are there, is it just a large volume of claims making up $12 million, or are there like 2 or 3 that have really popped recently that I need to get involved with and engage with? And we use this approach in a lot of our dashboards, and from a claim and underwriting community perspective, they really like it because they don't have to go anywhere else to get the detailed information that they're looking for. Okay, so extracting detailed data. So this is an example, and this one we implemented kind of very early on in our Tableau journey. Actually, let me show it before. Well, I can talk about it and then I can show it. So we primarily use Tableau for our analysis, analytics, dashboarding, that type of thing. But then we supplement or complement Tableau with Microsoft reporting services. We're a big SQL Server shop, so it just kind of makes sense for us. And anything that's kind of more row and column based, or folks are just looking for a wide set of information, or need some kind of fairly fine-tuned specific PDF report, we'll use reporting services for that. So this is an example where we've attached reporting services to Tableau. Okay, so I already have my monkeys example selected here. Won't get into the dashboard too much, but we're essentially looking at revenue. Gross written premium is our revenue. We're looking at revenue year over year, and the use case here is that from an underwriting perspective, they actually wanted to understand and know what made up, in this example, this $47 million. What are those accounts that make up that $47 million? And hey, I want to see a lot of information about the policies, 20, 30 different columns for whatever the use case was. So obviously not a fit for Tableau, right? But it fits fairly well within our reporting services reports. And we're able to leverage an existing report and hook it into Tableau. So if I hover over this 47 million, you'll see another hyperlink here, right, in the tooltip. So this is another URL action. So if I go over to Dashboard, Actions, we can take a little bit of a deeper look at this one. Right. I won't get into too much detail unless anyone wants me to read these item by item. So you can essentially see the first line is calling out to our reporting services server, right, and saying, hey, I want to go out and I want to run this report. Where's the report? Out here, right? So this policy drill down Tableau RDL report. And each one of the parameters that follow are either telling reporting services how to respond, or it's passing a value, whether it be a filter, a parameter, or a value from the actual sheet into reporting services, so that when I run the report in reporting services, the $47 million that I had on my Tableau report, all of the details I get in my reporting services report make up the same $47 million, right? I mean, finance wouldn't be happy if it didn't. So that's kind of how we make that happen, and essentially just setting all of the URL parameters along the way that are required to kind of hook the two up to communicate to each other. Again, I'm not hooked up to, I'm not connected here. I can't really show this in action other than just stuck a blurry screen out here. But this is, essentially the report that it pops out to. Many, many columns. It goes on fairly wide, but gives folks the information. It meets the need that they were looking for the details. Okay, so download to Excel. I'm sure there's no one in the room that has had a request, how do I get this information down to Excel, right? But in addition to that, have you ever, I do a lot of training on our Tableau dashboards. Have you ever tried to walk a group of people through how do you actually use kind of Tableau server to get data down to Excel? And you have to talk them through, like, click somewhere near here in order to enact that sheet, and then go to download crosstab, right? I think other than that functionality, Tableau is the most intuitive tool on the planet, but that one I always struggle with, right? And the users do too, right? I mean, because a lot of our user community, I mean, we do a lot of kind of internal dashboard development and publishing to server, and that's the main consumption at Axis. So, and there are folks who are, they have as we say, other day jobs, right? They're out there underwriting. They don't know technology, and something like that is completely non-intuitive. So, one item, and I heard this earlier in the week as well. If I flip back to the variance analysis, you see this Excel icon? So early on, we kind of built that Excel icon to make it a little bit more intuitive. And there's a technique here that was referenced. I forget what session it was. And essentially, you can take your dashboard and the URL path and just change the file type to a .csv, and it'll take all the data and download it to Excel for you. The problem with that approach is if folks have gone in and applied filters to the data, it doesn't carry the filters through. So you're still going to get the complete full data set. And we've struggled with that. So right, sorry. So what we've done here is, if I go back to my So this is my example that I showed you earlier with the renewal listing. So what's coming up for renewal and underwriters want to understand. And essentially, at the bottom of this dashboard, there's just a big long list of policies here, right? And what they want to do is dump it down to Excel, probably put like a comments field or some kind of status field and use it almost as a work list. We don't have a good like a Salesforce or a tool like that. So this is, it's essentially spreadsheet driven at the moment. So we're actually running Tableau 2018.2 now, and introduced as part of the extensions feature, or feature set, is an Excel download extension, right? So we've added that into our dashboards. We're not in kind of like a production mode yet, but we're in a test mode. And essentially what you do here is, and how you get this to work is, you take this T-Rex file and copy it, and just paste it into your dashboard. And once you do that, what you'll end up with is this export all icon, okay? And then within this export all icon, just make sure I got that right. There's a configure option, right? A little less than glamorous, but what this enables you to do is say, for this button, when I click on this, which one of the sheets on the dashboard do I want to download the data to Excel for? So if you see, if I scroll down here, my expiring policy detail is checked off. So that means that this export all button is attached to this detail sheet. When I click that button, all the data is going to come down to Excel. Now, from a demo purpose, one of the limitations is that when you're in desktop, it won't push the data down to Excel, so I can't kind of show you that full pass-through. You have to be on Tableau server for it to actually download the data to Excel. But this is essentially representing all the information that folks are looking for and their associated expiring policy detail listing. Okay, sorry, went off the, yep, there, much better. Okay, so dashboard-driven reporting packs. Again, I referenced this earlier. So the requirement here was, again, consistency. Think like, either monthly or quarterly review sessions, typically at, more of a senior level. And we're looking to take the information that's in Tableau and is all good information, but add some consistent views and be able to kind of spin through that information, right? Everybody in the room is probably saying, well, you could just do that online in Tableau. And I know we could. But this is what our specific requirement was, right? And essentially what the need is, the scenario here is, show me these 4 dashboards and show those same 4 dashboards for the same time period, but I want to see them for every line of business or every claim manager in this example who reports into me, right? And essentially like cycling through the dashboards and looping through the claim managers to build up a single PDF file, right? Now the claim managers themselves, they get the same report, and they'll go into Tableau to understand and be prepared for the meeting so that they can kind of explain some of the variances and the drivers and the trends and those types of things. But this is more of, a standard consistent output. And actually, here's an example, right? So you can see here, claim movement trends, and this is kind of the all version all rolled up. And if I start scrolling through this, you'll see this is a claim handler dashboard. Again, at the all rolled up level. This is claim expense summary, rolled up at the all level. And now we start cycling through. So I kind of just made this up. This is the automobile group, but I'm back at claim movement trends. Claim handler for the automobile group. And claim expense summary for the automobile group. So you can kind of get the sense of the cycling through in generating the file. There we go. Okay. So I'll just walk you through a little bit about how this works from a design architecture perspective and how this was built. So just to start out, if we kind of look at this from a process flow perspective, the start button. So tab CMD. So you need tab command installed. And Tableau recommends that if you're using tab command, you install that on a separate server, not on your Tableau server. Okay, so that's why you see like a separate box over here. And then essentially there's a PowerShell script that drives all the processing. And Stephen, who's over there, so Stephen from Slalom Consulting helped us out and turned himself into a PowerShell expert along the way. And kind of generated the PowerShell script. And essentially what that does is it says, okay, so there's a set of dashboards I want to run, and it kind of builds out those links, and then goes out and queries the data, in my example, the claim manager group, and just builds an array of the claim managers, right? And it sends a call out to Tableau. And it passes the appropriate parameters from the claim manager list or any other filters that you have, and runs the report or the dashboard in Tableau server, right? And tells Tableau server, run it as a PDF, and when you run it, the PDF, stick the output of the PDF into this folder. That folder actually sits back on the tab CMD server, but too many arrows going all over the place. And then it'll loop through here, right? Back to the script, find the next dashboard, go out, run it, and essentially keep looping through and generating all of these files and sticking them out in a folder, which is great. We have all of our PDFs that we need, but our North America claim lead doesn't want to look at 30 different PDF files. So in addition to that, the PowerShell script, this will go out, and we use this third-party adapter here called PDF Sharp. There's probably other ones out there. But what this tool does for us is it goes out and takes all of the separate individual PDF files and appends them all into a single file. Right? So this is my single PDF file, and then can do whatever I want with this. Stick it on a location somewhere on a website, send it an email, et cetera, et cetera. Right? So that's generally how the flow works. And for anyone that's interested, I stuck some sample code in here as well, so you can look at it, or you can talk to Stephen. He'll answer all your questions. We joke because none of us are PowerShell experts, so it's sheer luck that we got this thing to work. No luck. It's all. Not going to read every line of code to you. So data quality controls. I threw this one in here because, from an insurance business, I don't know how many folks in the room are from the insurance industry, but insurance is a highly regulated industry, not just within the states where it is and kind of state regulated by the state insurance departments, but especially overseas as well. When we're working in the London market with Lloyd's of London, there are a lot of filings that we need to do. And from a data quality perspective, we are held to very high quality standards. to the point where if you do not have good data quality, Lloyd's could boot you out, okay? So it's important for us to build, have some controls around our data and the quality of our data. And again, we don't have a very robust tool for this, but something we had to ramp up very quickly. So what we did was, again, we're kind of majority SQL Server shop. We built this data quality framework. Essentially, all that does is it's a series of stored procedures that goes out and queries the data with different rules and different logic put into place, and says, you know, if I find an issue on any one of those rule sets, write it out to a table, right, and assign it to a different data quality check item, if you will, right? And then, you know, maybe not a standard use of Tableau. We use Tableau to look at the data quality issues, and from an operations team perspective and operational monitoring, give them the ability to see how many issues we have out there, and also how good are we doing at resolving those issues. So I don't like that error. Okay, very simple dashboard, right? But it provides a lot of information for folks. So if you look at this listing, it's essentially, we call them DQIs. These are all of our different data quality types, and you can see by category and who owns those quality issues. So if there's an issue, what group needs to take action and resolve those? And then again, just the sheer volume of the issues, right? Down below, it actually takes the same type of information and just breaks them out over a different type of grouping that we have here to understand different types of policy contracts. How much of a quality issue do we have within those groups? But there's a whole series, maybe like 10 different dashboards within this workbook, and oops, what was that? And what these dashboards do is they monitor how many quality issues you have, but also operations' ability to correct those issues. So as they're correcting issues, it's tracking that along the way as well. So we can say, hey, we have 100 quality issues out there, and so far we've resolved 78% of them, right? So there's still whatever number left there. But again, just an example of how Tableau can be used from a more practical perspective within an operations group, and nothing like super sexy visualization, but really relevant and helpful for our organization. Okay, so okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is related to a request that we had within our underwriting group. And what they were doing is changing the way that the underwriting process works from an authority perspective, which was very kind of top-heavy, meaning that from an authority to actually book policies was sitting with just a few folks, and taking that to a different operational process where authority is spread out across all levels within the department. And their need was to understand and be able to track and measure and monitor the individual underwriters within that group, essentially to make sure no one was going rogue, right? We didn't have this underwriter going off the rails, writing 100% of their risk in a product line that we only want to be 8% in, right? And there wasn't really a tool that existed like that, and I titled this slide, Why I Love Tableau, because I've used a number of BI tools, and what I love about Tableau is the ability to sit in a room, and that's exactly, Stephen and myself sat in a room, and we talked to this underwriting exec and just understood what he needed and how he wanted to measure and monitor where his underwriters were spending time, where they were booking policies. And that was a Monday or Tuesday. By the end of the week, we had that underwriting exec back in the room looking at a dashboard. And to me, that's just really cool because I've worked with a number of BI tools and have not worked with one where it's as easy and flexible and dynamic and so quick to make change and react and kind of visualize just some words into actionable data. So let me show you a little bit about what this dashboard does. Okay, so what we're looking at here is, from an insurance perspective, the pipeline, if you will. There's kind of submissions or leads that come in, if you will, from a sales perspective. And then quotes would be, hey, if we want to take on the risk that's in the submission, we would then provide a quote for it, just like you would provide a quote for any other type of business. And then booked is the term that we use, bind or booked. The policy when you've actually converted it into a contract, okay? So what this dashboard is doing is it focuses in on a specific underwriter. And here we're looking at our number one underwriter, right? And it enables you to do some comparative analysis and select the level of detail that you want to compare that underwriter to. In this case, all region is selected, but you could select one of our other regions as well. It gives you the ability, again, we saw view bys in some of our other dashboards. So the view by is defining the rows that you want to do that comparative analysis on. And then also pick on the left side and right side charts, what measures do I want to look at, okay? So what this is showing right now is, this is by broker group. The bars represent the underwriter's percentage of total submissions in this case. So if you see my measurement here is submissions, so these are submission counts, and it's looking at a percentage of total. The reference lines represent the percentage of total for the regions. Right? So if you look at this, the number of submissions coming in for this underwriter in NDA brokers is 56%, while the region is like 8%. This may be an area to look at, right? I can change my measure here. I'm going to change that from submissions to quotes. So what's the difference here? Submissions are kind of those leads, if you will, that are coming into a queue for a specific underwriter. Quotes are the ones that underwriters actually picking up and doing work on. So from a management level perspective, where are my underwriters spending their time? That's in quotes, okay? So now, similar type analysis here. Now we're looking at quotes, and you can see that this underwriter is spending 61% of their time with NDA, whereas everyone else is, about 13%, okay? So it might be worth a conversation or an understanding. And then over here on the right-hand side is, this is a quote to submit ratio, right? But what might be more telling is a bound to quote ratio, right? So what this is saying is, how successful is this underwriter at binding the quotes that he or she is putting out, okay? And so this compares the success rate for this underwriter to the success rate for the rest of the region, or all the regions in this case, which is a different conversation. This might be more of a conversation, especially where we see green here, is, hey, you're doing really well with this broker. How you doing so good so we can help everyone else out, right? Down below, there's in call it the midsection, same type of information for those folks who are really numbers driven. One thing I forgot to mention at the onset was, again, for those of you who aren't in insurance, we don't build a product, right? We don't have anything kind of tangible. There's a lot of analytical folks within and throughout really every discipline within the organization, right? So a lot of them are numbers driven. You see on a lot of our dashboards, there's a visualization, and then there's supporting numbers and details alongside that. But what they really like, again, from the underwriter perspective, and I showed you this in the claim example, is, if I want to see for ABC company, what are these 2 submissions? I just click that, right? And now I can see what they are. And it's very useful for them to take a quick deep dive because they are very account driven and have a lot of conversations around the actual insureds that we're writing risk for. Okay. So that was everything I had. So I'll open it up to questions if there are any. Go ahead.
So your connection to your existing reporting, what application is that? Because we've struggled with the URL links to our internal applications with the authentication. So everybody, how do you make sure users have access to the application with your URL link in Tableau?
Yeah, so the question is, what reporting tool are we linking out to, and how do we make sure that folks have access? So it's Microsoft Reporting Services, which is just a feature of SQL Services. Again, we're a SQL Server shop, so it just makes sense for us. All of the authentication is done on the SQL Server side, right? So we don't have to pass any authentication through in the URL. If someone doesn't have access to that report, it'll bomb out on the reporting services side when the web browser opens up. Yeah. Yes?
Great presentation. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
I saw there were a lot of tabs in the dashboard, so you must have faced some performance challenges, load testing, and all of that. How do you typically go about it? Like, what's your plan around it when you're designing a dashboard?
Yeah, so the question is related around performance and dashboard design and such. There's a lot of tabs in that workbook because I assembled it together for this presentation. But we do have a number of workbooks that have a good set of dashboards in them. I guess from a performance perspective, we hit some challenges early on, and I think some of the items that I can recall, because we've kind of overcome those hurdles a bit. One of the things that we do is we build so we probably have about a good couple dozen workbooks, right? And a lot of them feed off of the same data repository within our data warehouse. So we build a Tableau data server data source that's centralized, right? I kind of think of it as like the core data repository for the Tableau workbooks. And so all of the calculations that way are all baked into one data source and don't have to be repeated across each one of the workbooks. That's more of like a consistency type. So, and it's all extract based, but that's fairly large because all of our premium information, all of our loss information is baked into that one data source. So what we do is with each of our individual workbooks, we'll run another extract off of that Tableau data source to just bring in what that workbook needs. So example, broker workbook will only pull information that the broker workbook needs to satisfy the needs of its dashboards. So if you think about running the extract and there's the hide unused fields or whatever it is, I forget the exact name of it, it won't pull all the data, it'll just pull in the data that's needed, and that's worked really well for us. And then we've also shortened some of the time where it's just needed, if it's only a 5-year report, then, we'll just pull the 5 years in.
Just to follow up on your point, accessing the database, do you recommend using APIs or do you typically go directly into the database and pull the data directly?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we access the data? Typically, it's just a SQL connection, database connection. We write a lot of custom SQL to pull it in. However, I am excited about the multiple table extracts that we saw yesterday. So that's some cool stuff. Yes? So the question is, how are we kicking off the PowerShell scripts? And I'm looking back here.
The main use case for that one was a specific user. So it is just in a .bat file linking to the PowerShell file. So I would just double click it and run it. But the one cool thing we did with that is it's like a 150-page PDF. You can periodically change your mind on what you wanted. So as opposed to updating all that logic, I just configured the database. So I could say this user with this email address wants this URL with these filters, and that script just cycles through that database. So to answer your question, maybe, but if we needed to automate it, we would just use Windows Task Scheduler and put it on the server.
Could you link it to a CRM to have that pre-populated meeting content?
Link it to the CRM.
Yeah, just if you have, let's say Salesforce, and you're linking to meetings, and you have a
Yeah,
list.
I mean, like he said, I did a lot of Googling to get this done. I'm no expert, but I would assume that you could, especially if you couldn't do it in PowerShell, you could do it in Python or something like that.
Yes?
I know you're talking about Excel exports, so you talked about the extensionable with it.
Mhm.
So you talked about you guys, it's not a custom way to do it, but just download all your data, not with the filters. Does the extension download with the filters you have set on your workflow?
Yeah, so the question is, with the new Excel extension, does it download the data with the filters applied? The answer is yes. So what it does is it just reads what's in that specific sheet and downloads that data. Yeah. Yeah. Just one thing, one note there is, and with a lot of these extensions, is that they are kind of out in the marketplace. So the way it works off the shelf, if you will, send your data out, right? So you're kind of shipping all your data out, it's formatted, and then comes back in an Excel file. It has to be, think about security and data moving back and forth, because really anyone can write these extensions. So what we've been working to is to actually bring that one internal. So it stays within our network. Right. Yes?
I just had a real quick one. This is more of a change management question, but the process you have to create the PDFs, I think that was really innovative. It's interesting to me. It's a nice takeaway for me, but it also seems so very wrong. And the change management issue, you mentioned one user. Should you not be forcing that user's hand and saying we have better tools, better ways of doing this? So I think it's cool that you can, but sounds like a lesson that just because you can't doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, so the question is, and probably from a Tableau pure play perspective, should we be generating PDF files, static files off of Tableau when Tableau has so much more dynamic capability, right? Yeah. Yes, absolutely, right? But it's also a bit about adoption and getting folks to walk before they run. And it took us a long time just to get people onto Tableau to, again, believe the numbers, believe the analysis. And there's always going to be some old school folks who still want the paper file dropped on their desk. And I think within any organization, you're going to have pockets of each type of user, right? And so what that's enabled us to do is actually get that manager to leverage Tableau, maybe not online, but the information and what we've built out and analyses we've built out, and then his kind of reporting chain to use Tableau online. So we are getting them engaged, maybe not like just throwing it at them all at once. And I guess from my perspective, I'm a little bit hesitant to say, no, I'm not going to do that for you. I'd rather kind of get them to get comfortable with the data and the results, and then start to get their hand onto a mouse. Our users also do a lot of custom views, right? So kind of setting up their filters for their group and setting up the email subscriptions. It's just something that they're used to, and it works well for them. And then when they need a deeper insight, they click on the email and jump right into Tableau. Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, do we do any forecast versus actuals? Like baked in Tableau functionality? No, we don't. We haven't really explored that at this point. Yeah. Yes?
So before the 2018 version of Tableau, were you able to do the export to Excel?
So the question is, before the 2018 version of Tableau, were we able to do the export to Excel? Yes and no. So yes, meaning with the kind of .csv approach. And the limitation there is that if you have any filters selected, it doesn't provide a filtered data set. It'll provide the full data set.
And you do that through dashboard actions?
No, you can actually set that up. Take my email address and we can, yeah. Okay. And there's someone referenced a link. I don't know if it was Andy's blog or we certainly didn't come up with that one.
With the new export, is it still a .csv? Or is it in native Excel? The reason I ask, either numbers have leading zeros, and if we export as a CSV, Excel chops off the leading zeros. It's really irritating.
I don't know how that would work, but it actually opens up straight in Excel.
Is it XLSX or?
I don't know. I don't recall, yeah, without doing it. Yeah. I mean, you can even give it a shot with a sample data set if you're concerned about your data going external, right? You could just use Superstore data and fool around with it, right? Yeah. And I guess just for anyone, if you have any questions like that about how we've done things or some deeper detail on how we've implemented things, feel free to reach out to me. My email's on the slide deck and such. Always welcome that. Is there anything else? Great. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it.